Hello, my friend. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kaylin. This is Full Purpose and Heart, and this is the first video of my Back to Homeschool series that is going to be on my channel for the entire month of September. A lot of channels I know put all of their Back to Homeschool series in 1 week, but I don't do it that way. So each of my videos this week is going to follow along with the theme of getting back to homeschool and all of the things that go along with that. Schedules and organization and classroom tours and all of that kind of stuff. So today's video, I am going to answer a couple of questions that I got when I posted several weeks back just as an anniversary, let's talk about homeschool questionnaire that I put on here on YouTube. So anyway, we're gonna chat about that. So if you wanna just sit back and hear a little bit about my story and our homeschooling journey and answering some of these questions, then let's go ahead and get started. All right, let us have a fun little conversation. I love these types of videos where I get to just invite you into my schoolroom and it's like you and I are just having a conversation and I get to tell you a little bit about our story and how we got started with homeschooling and just my philosophy and all of that kind of fun stuff that goes along with our side of the mountain. So if you are new or if you are old, a quick introduction. Again, my name is Kaylin. We have been homeschooling since the beginning. My oldest is now 12. So if you count those preschool years, I think we're in around about 9-ish years, I think. He's going into 7th grade. So I started this YouTube channel 9 years ago when I started a preschool with him. So it was the official beginning of our homeschool journey. And homeschool started for us really quite by accident, I guess you could say. I don't know. We had just moved into a new community and I was late to sign him up for any kind of preschool. We had done Joy School in our first neighborhood. So then when we moved, I just kind of was like, well, I'll just, kind of keep going and do a little bit here and there. And resources are pretty abundant when it comes to preschool and elementary school stuff. So I just kind of started that way. And then our second year was a little bit the same in the sense that I started kindergarten for him, but I had a preschool, it was a K4 group of kids that came to my house. And we did that 3 days a week. And so I was like, oh, well, that kind of counts as kindergarten. I don't have to send him right away. And so that filled our kindergarten year. And then first grade was kind of a lot the same, where I was like, well, I think we're doing this, we are kind of homeschooling. And that's really when I decided to sink my teeth into it and buy actual homeschool curriculum. I believe I actually did buy some for our kindergarten year, but anyway, that's kind of how it started for us. One thing led to another. And then of course, COVID happened and I was wildly grateful that we already were homeschooling. And now here we are going into 7th grade. So I have 3 kids that I homeschool, and this channel kind of documents all of the stuff that we've been doing and are doing, and if it's good and if it's bad and kind of all of that stuff. So that's the story about how we got started and why we are still homeschooling. As far as our future, that's another common question that people get is, are you going to send your older kids to school as they get older? And I have always had a very loose philosophy in that mindset where it's like, I intend to keep my kids home as long as they want to be here. But if I begin to having to address why they're not in public school, they want to go to public school, and those kinds of things, especially as they start hitting the senior high school levels and that sort of thing, like junior high school and senior high school, then that would be something that I would consider as dual enrollment or anyway, so we're just haven't crossed that bridge yet is what it comes to. But I've always known that I was going to keep my kids home, especially through the middle school years. And so with my oldest, it's worked out perfect because he is more of an introvert and he doesn't really have any interest in that very large, very loud, very public school scene. So anyway, that's kind of a short little gist about me. I talk about it a lot, but I'll throw it in. I was a public school teacher before I started having kids. And then when my oldest was born, I quit teaching school. So he was a summer baby. So I literally taught that whole school year and then had my baby in the summer. So that was the end of my public school career. And since then I've just been home and now we're here with the kids. So anyway, that's kind of a quick little update about me and our homeschooling beginning. I do have a list of questions here. This all came from my viewers, from you, from the subscribers that wanted to ask me some questions. So in no particular order, I'm just going to kind of go down the list. So one of the first questions I got was, does homeschooling get easier? Again, I have older-ish kids. I mean, there are a lot of YouTube homeschoolers that have older kids than I do, but my oldest is in 7th grade. And my answer is yes and no. There are aspects of homeschool that does get easier. The kids kind of know the routine. They know the expectation, especially if you have set that expectation year after year in their, growing up elementary school years. That part does get easier. Curriculum picks doesn't get easier. Trying to figure out what the right curriculum is, that doesn't get easier. Always being concerned about whether or not you're doing enough, that doesn't ever go away. In my opinion, when the kids are younger, teaching multiple grade levels is easier than when they're older. I feel like this year has been a really interesting dynamic as I prepare for the year, because 7th grade is vastly different from 2nd grade. When I had just my 2 little kids, my oldest was in 5th grade and my younger one was in 2nd grade. So I could kind of cross teach those 2 levels pretty easily. But I have learned, or I have experienced, that it feels like 7th and 2nd grade, they're so far apart that it feels really challenging to teach our family subjects together, as I have always been doing. Now, yes, I do know that there are some curriculums that cater their curriculum specifically to this type of dynamic. I have looked at some of those and they just don't vibe well with me. I just haven't really adopted that teaching style. So anyway, that's the 2 cents that I have about that. Is I think that aspects of it get easier, but other aspects of it get more challenging. So it's just different chapters, different flows of life. And my only advice and I've said this before, is that you just need to know what your commitment to your homeschooling journey is. And then regardless of how difficult it is, you will manage a way and find a way through it. For me, the way that I said it before was, don't have an exit strategy when it comes to your homeschooling journey. If homeschooling is what you want, you need it to be the only option that there is. You can't be always looking for, well, where can I send my kids? And maybe I could do this public school situation, or maybe I can go and send them to did I say private? I think I said public school. I don't know what I said, but anyway, public school, private school, charter school, all of these send them out of the house options may be appealing to you if you're not all in with your homeschooling journey. That is not to say that, if you're doing some kind of cross-curricular or what is it called? Concurrent enrollment, all of those are good options. But when you come up to a roadblock or a hard chapter or hard years, or maybe you're teaching a kid that's got disabilities and it's just not clicking and everything's challenging for them, when you hit those roadblocks, it can seem easier to send them to a space that specializes in education. So therefore they're going to do better by your kids. That's not always the case. So that was a really long answer about whether or not it gets easier. The answer, I guess, is yes and no. Okay. Question number 2 is, does our family do co-ops? The answer is yes, we do a co-op. We just started a co-op. Last year was our first year, so we're moving into our 2nd year of the co-op. This is a co-op space that I actually created for my own kids. We looked and looked and looked, and by we, I mean I went to certain meetings. I tried to find something that fit exactly what I was looking for, and true to my style, I couldn't find it. So fortunately, God had intervened, and I crossed paths with 7 other moms who were looking for something similar than I was, and we worked together to create the co-op that we now have. Last year was our first year. We have now doubled in size. We have twice as many families and twice as many kids. So it has been such a blessing. I think that a co-op space, when it comes to you, is really based on what you are looking for. Each family is looking for something different for their kids' education. Some co-ops can be very demanding. Some co-ops can be too loose. Some co-ops can, anyway, there's all kinds of things that you're looking for. If you want to be a more isolated, maybe a more silo-centered homeschool, and those words kind of have a negative connotation, but you know what I'm trying to say, then co-ops may not be for you. And if you like to travel a lot, then co-ops may not be for you. And so it really is a family by family situation. I really was looking for something for my oldest child so that he could have a community of kids that were his own age. Given the neighborhood that we lived in, it just didn't, and his personal extracurricular interests, he wasn't meeting those people the way that I had hoped that he would. So that's why I went out and we did this co-op thing. So our co-op meets once a week, and then we actually do meet twice a week. We have classes once a week, and then on Fridays we have like a field trips where we all get together and we do some kind of activity. Sometimes it's a field trip or a tour or an experience. Sometimes it's just getting together and having a park date together. So yes, we do a co-op, and technically it's twice a week, but really we do classes once, and then the Friday is kind of an optional if, you know, depending on what's on the calendar. So, okay, the next question is, what kind of book recommendations would I give to a new homeschooling mom? And so I just have a little stack here. Some of them, okay, 3 of them are from the same author, and I love her content. I met her when I was at a homeschool convention, and I've only been to 2. It's been a very long time since I've been to a convention, but in the beginning I went to 2 conventions and she was one of the speakers, and I just absorbed everything that she was teaching. And to this day, I just love her. So her name is Megan Scheibner, and she has these 3 books. This one's called Character Healthy Homeschool, and it's A to Z. So I absolutely love all of the stuff that she has. I've read through this book at the beginning of all of my homeschool years, and I love her perspective. It's so fantastic. So Character Healthy Homeschooling, A+. The next one that I love from her is called Rise and Shine, Routines and Recipes for Your Morning. I am a very large advocate of morning routines and getting up in the morning and getting your day started before your children are up and at 'em, getting your school day started. That's the way that I have found a lot of success in my homeschooling journey, in raising my kids and in teaching my kids discipline, self-discipline specifically. So this has just been an awesome resource for that. In the back of the book, she has a couple of recipes that are great for breakfast. She just talks about so many really good, really motivating. It's a great book. So Rise and Shine. I don't even know. I think that you might have to go to their website, which is characterhealth.com, to find these books. I think I have seen them on Amazon, but they're priced ridiculously, almost like it's like a private seller is trying to resell them. So anyway, characterhealth.com is where you can find all of their books. Okay, the other one that she does, I really do love, The Wise Wife. Another I just love it. I love all of her content. She could come out with a book tomorrow about how to build a rainbow, and I'd be like, I need to have it because she's so good. Like, don't ask me what I don't know what that means. But anyway, this is another just really good, sound counsel, good advice. Like, what am I trying to say? Tangible strategies that you can implement in your life that isn't, it's not turning you into some like submissive, you don't have your own opinion or your own backbone kind of a mentality, but definitely being a good wife. And it's very Christian based. So if you are into that kind of stuff, it says, The Wise Wife, because wisdom lasts longer than Botox. Oh, I just love it. Okay. This one is Homeschooling 101. This is where I started with my homeschool journey. This is from Erica from Confessions at a Homeschooler. And I got this book I think I got it from her website, but it's just a really good nuts and bolts to homeschooling. So if you are new to the homeschooling journey, or you have young ones at home, or maybe you're new and you're just starting with your upper elementary school student, this has just been, it's got really good. It talks about standardized testing, and it talks about reporting, and it talks about curriculum, and it talks about storage and backup plans, and it's just so many stuff. Erica also has a lot of like free printables and organization guides and stuff that she offers on her website. I will say that she has transitioned her platform, her social media platforms, over to quilting. So if you find her on social media, she talks a lot about quilting patterns that she makes and blah, blah, blah. So her homeschooling stuff is kind of buried a little bit because her kids are older now, but you can still find it. So the last one that I have is not necessarily homeschool related, but it is it's a life-changing book for me. It's called Atomic Habits, and it talks about habit stacking. And this has been really helpful for me in actually like getting my homeschool day going. I am 100% committed to having a successful homeschool year after year after year. Now that hasn't always been the case. We had a really rocky homeschool year 2 years ago. And so this is just one of those books that kind of teaches you habits, and it's really good for teaching your kids habits and you habits, and it's a really good, self-help book, I guess you could say. So there you go. There's a couple of book recommendations. Most of them are Megan Scheibner at characterhealth.com. I love them. And if you go over to her website, then hopefully you can grab them. So, okay. The next one is extracurricular activities. What do I do for my kids for extracurricular activities? You know, the big social question that comes with homeschooling is how do you socialize your kids? And it's a great misunderstanding in the homeschool space. It's not something that I'm going to talk about here, but extracurricular activities are definitely a space that homeschool students have more access to, I would say. And it really kind of rounds out their personality and their character development and their interests and all that kind of good stuff. So I do actually look pretty intensely at extracurricular activities, and I choose very specifically what I want my kids to do based on their interests, based on how often does the group meet, how much does it cost, how far away is it, all that kind of stuff kind of goes into those decisions. The overlying theme for our family is that we only have our kids in one extracurricular activity per school year. And then they are allowed to switch activities at the end of the year. So if one year they want to do soccer, then the next year they want to do parkour, then the next year they want to do golfing, whatever it is, I don't combine those activities all together just because I can't take my kids to more than one activity at a time. The only exception to that rule is if the seasons are separate. So if they're, for example, here my son does soccer in the fall, but then it ends at the end of November. So then in the winter, it's like, oh, well, then you can do something different, go back to parkour or whatever. So that's that. My kids' interests are vastly different. My oldest is very much into the arts, like actual art, drawing and painting and creating in that sense. So for him, I put him in an art class, and that's what he does once a week. My middle child is in the theater arts and performing arts. So she does a lot of singing and dancing and musical theater and all that kind of stuff, choir. So just kind of depending on what she is interested in that particular semester, that's what she does. And then my youngest is more physical than my other two. So he, like I mentioned, is doing soccer. He's done parkour. He's done gymnastics. Not necessarily, soccer will be his first competitive sport. So anyway, so that's kind of what I do for my kids for that. We, as I mentioned before, do co-op. That is considered our extracurricular as well. So they meet twice a week with their co-op friends and have experiences and socialization aspects in that space. And then on top of all of those, we do have our church group that meets weekly for the kids. My youngest isn't old enough to be a part of those weekly meetings yet. He will be in January. So they meet once a week with their age group and have some kind of organized activity or service project or whatever it is with the youth at church once a week for that. So those are all of our extracurricular activities. Our school day only lasts between 2 and 3 hours, so it does leave a lot of time for extracurricular. I have a lot of options, and it's always hard to narrow it down. I know that like music could be something that I would really love my kids to do more of, and service would be something I'd really love my kids to do more of. And leadership, I'd love my kid to be involved, my oldest especially, to be involved in community leadership opportunities. But there's only so much time, and there's, in a day that I just don't want to cram everything in all together. So that is that. The other two questions are kind of a little bit deep, I guess you could say, and really encouragement based. So one of them is the do's and don'ts of homeschooling. there's 1,000 different directions that I can go with this, but the biggest thing that I want to say as the do's and don'ts is do make sure that you are enjoying your homeschooling journey, whatever that looks like for you. Make sure that you find a homeschooling method that you really enjoy doing. If workbooks and projects and computer-based lessons isn't doing it for you or your kid, then stop doing it that way and find something different. Fortunately, today, there's a vast array of approaches to homeschool, and you can do anything under the sun. There's just so many, from unschooling and Montessori and Charlotte Mason and traditional and distance learning. And I mean, there's just so much that you could do. Don't put yourself in a box and then think that's the only way that you have to do it. And do enjoy your homeschooling journey. So that would be the do's and don'ts. And I could probably make a whole video with like the 5 do's and don'ts, but that's just the number one, is always be self-reflecting and evaluating how you're feeling about your homeschooling journey. And if there's something that you need to drop or something that you need to pick up or something you need to add, then do those things, because homeschooling really can be such an enjoyable experience. And if you're not liking it, then find something different that you can do. So that would be my tip for that. And then the last one is the best and the worst homeschool experiences that I have. My best homeschooling years was when we were on our road trip in 2020, and we were on the East Coast for 4 months, and we traveled the East Coast. We really did, mostly it was Virginia and Florida. And then we kind of hopscotched around in a couple of places, a little bit of DC, but it was COVID. So our options were kind of a little bit hit or miss, but that was really the best experiences that I had with homeschool. So my tip for your best homeschool would be field trips. Please make sure that you are looking for opportunities locally and maybe outside of your county and in your state, and then of course nationwide, opportunities that you can take your kids and experience whatever it is that you're learning. Go and see a volcano if you're around the area, right? Or go and see the dinosaur bones, or go and see the old house, or go and experience and tour and see. So that would be the best. My worst homeschool experience was, I kind of briefly mentioned, was 2 years ago. And I decided to pick up a part-time job, and it wasn't required. I just decided to do it because I did a favor for a friend. And that part-time job really turned into consuming so many hours of my day. 4 hours would turn to 6 hours, would turn to an 8-hour day, and constantly thinking about it or answering my phone in the middle of class. So that really was the worst homeschool experience for us. So my tip for that is to make sure that your homeschool time is important and is prioritized, and not to allow those outside expectations or voices or appointments to get into your homeschool hours. I know it's not everybody's blessing or opportunity to not have to work and that they can just be home and homeschool. That is my blessing. And so when I lost sight of that a little bit and I was doing my job, it did make my homeschool year really, really hard. We spent a lot of time doing distance learning, or I would have a day where lots of days where in a row where it was like, just do your math and then just turn on your English lesson with your, distance learning teacher or whatever, the videos that you watch, and then, okay, good, that's enough that we're going to do today. So it was not as robust or experience filled as I like. So that would be, that's the answer to that. The best and the worst is, the best is the field trips and the actually going out and doing. The worst is when I don't prioritize my school time and we end up just kind of doing the bare minimum week after week after week. And it really kind of makes it so it's not very fun. So anyway, okay, those are all the questions. The last one that I have was so complimentary. They're like, where did you get your blouses? It's so cute. So a lot of the blouses that I film myself in are from Shein. SHIEN, or is it EIN? Anyway, it's just an online company and I buy my shirts from them because they're not very expensive. They do fit the fit can be a little questionable. So So do your own research and decide what you want if you want to do that. But that's where most of my shirts do come from, and I like them. Yeah, this one is a Shein, I'm pretty sure. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thanks so much for tuning into this video. And again, stay tuned, because all of the month of September, I'm going to talk about our homeschool practices and what we're doing over here on our side of the mountain. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.